Say thank you all for being here. I'm Stephanie Carpenter. I'm the program officer here at Hamilton. I know we have lots of people who join us every week, and we have lots of people who just love Bill. I want to say Bill Moran has completely changed how people experience the Hamilton Wood Type and Printing Museum in Two Rivers, Wisconsin. For 20 years, Bill has brought innovative ideas and a warm smile to the museum. He welcomed everyone with open arms. He was happy to share this magical place and this stunning collection. Initially a volunteer, then artistic director, and finally partnerships and development officer. He's been on the helm of projects from Target to Adobe to Heffler. Bill is not afraid to think big. He's a third generation printer. He's a graphic designer. He's a professor of printing history at the University of Minnesota. He's knowledgeable and he always brings passion to his work. My colleagues and myself have been lucky to work with him and are better because of it. So, Bill, I want to say we're really excited for whatever comes next. We know you'll still be a familiar face around Hamilton, but we'll miss working with you every day. So thank you so much for agreeing to do this. And thanks for everything you've done for Hamilton.
Pleasure's mine. Pleasure's mine. It's so sweet to look across the faces on the call today. My friendships with all of you and other folks who have supported the museum goes back in many different permutations. Many of us met through Hamilton. Some of us met in college. Some of us met when you were just 2 years old. Matthew Brown, I'm thinking of. It's an exciting, it's just been 20 years of amazing collaborations and partnerships. And that honestly was what really struck me when I came here for the first time, was that this was a place to bring people to, this was a place to get people to collaborate. And that has made all the difference in the world, because as amazing as the museum staff is, and they are off the charts wonderful, it's support from friends like you who make this just a really wonderful mix and match of talented individuals. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I am not so multi-skill talented that I can follow the chat section while I'm talking. That's like, you know, this, or wait, no, you get the idea. Anyway, so I'm gonna just jump in here. And the thing I want to encourage you to do is to interrupt or ask questions at any time. I'm happy to field questions as we go along. So let's see. Everybody looking at the first slide of the slideshow? Yes, good. So we are going to try to boil all of this fun down into 1 hour. I can't promise that will happen, but here goes. The 2001, I received a brochure from the Two Rivers Historical Society, and they, more than anyone, deserve credit for what Hamilton has become. Don Conup, who's on the call, longtime president of the Two Rivers Historical Society, current board member of the museum, Hamilton retiree, the recipient of a wood type legacy font name. It's really, really hard to describe how important and how central the Two Rivers Historical Society is to all of this. So somehow they get this mailing list and they send out these brochures, and I get one in the mail at my house in St. Paul, and it's like, oh, I got to go check that place out. So I head to Two Rivers. This is while the beautiful drawer pull awning was still functioning. I think the weather had its way with it eventually, but there's certain things you remember about walking through these doors. For me, the biggest thing is the sound of the steps that you walked onto when you came in the door. It was like a big box drum. So you'd walk through that door, the door would slam shut, and as you walked across that platform, your footsteps reverberated, and that reverberation was like, this is I'm walking into a really magical place. And so 2001, I'm walking up and down the aisles of the museum and I'm looking at the collections that were acquired from Irving Silverman and Graham Lee, the Graham Lee collection, and beautiful presses and displays. And I was just completely in awe. And like everybody on this call and like so many people over the past 20 years, 21 years, you're immediately taken by how beautiful this collection is and how beautiful this town is. It's magical. It's a retreat. It's really hard to put into words, but so something really wonderful happened in 2001 and I fell in love instantly. So I had met Jim Sheridan at an AIGA national conference in 1999. And that was at a time when you could still call Hatch Show Print and Jim would answer the phone or other people would answer the phone, and he was so gracious. And this is a photograph that I took of him and Norb Brilski. Sorry for the poor resolution on this, but this was a photograph that I took while Jim was doing interviews of museum staff and we were doing research and we were getting ready to publish a book. So we realized that Hatch and Hamilton's history went back to the 1880s and the importance that Hatch has to Hamilton as a resource, as a source of history is really, really hard to overstate. I was lucky enough to be asked to, no. I forced my way onto AIGA Minnesota and I said, hey, you have to let me talk at a luncheon about this incredible museum. And they agreed to let me do that. And those poor people, they got an earful. So a lot of trips back and forth to visit Hamilton. And we started securing funding to do a book. I approached the Two Rivers Historical Society and I said, this place deserves a book. You need your history documented. And they put up some money and Jan Abrams at the Design Institute of University of Minnesota put up money. Nina Paper graciously donated all of the paper for the project. And you can see on the right here, there's a nice picture of Jim Van Lannen standing there at I want to say he's at a printing press. But anyway, Jim Van Lannen really was the driving force for Two Rivers in terms of tourism, in terms of establishing museums, and he really deserves a ton of credit for what he's done for this community, and really with he and Don Connop really founding as founders of this place. It was a great experience. They were very generous. I had one of those experiences with this book where I raised about 3/4 of the money I think it was like a $14,000 project that was needed. And I had raised about 3/4 of that. And I thought, if I wait until I raise all the money, it's never going to happen because it was just a challenge. So I went ahead, forged ahead with letterpress printing the cover of it and designing the interior. And I hired a printing company over in Neenah, Wisconsin. And the printing bill came out to about $3,000 more than the money that I had secured for the project. But I thought, this has to be done. This absolutely has to get published because it's just such an important story to tell. And so it was standing there in the parking lot of the print shop, and the duotones that I had specified for the book were just turning out muddy as all get out. And I knew if I pulled the book off press, it was going to cost me yet more money. So we went ahead and printed it. And it's not good to talk about things that you're not happy about with your projects, but it was just, it became really clear to me that this was a story that needed to be told. And so my employees at Blink Publishing, which was my consulting agency I was running with at the time, helped me with the design, helped me with the photography, and came along with me on numerous road trips and served as models and a variety of other things. So that was 2003 where we got that. Jim Van Lannen and Norb Brilski they presented at TypeCon in Minneapolis. And my dear, dear friend Heather West, who runs this amazing public relations firm in St. Paul, Minneapolis, She agreed to start doing press releases as a volunteer. She also wrote the first article about Hamilton in a major publication. How Magazine published it back in 2003. And so that was a really important beginning of level of exposure. The other thing to say about this book is I showcased the work of Dennis Ishiyama and Richard Zoft, who were bringing students here and were really instrumental in terms of getting the word out there. I saw a talk that Richard gave at the Minnesota Center for Book Arts. I was seeing Dennis's work as published through Mohawk Papers. And again, the work that these two guys and their staff did, or their students did on the museum's behalf was just fantastic. I was teaching adjunct at the Minneapolis College of Art and Design at that point, and I would sucker students into coming over and say that they could print, but as we were in the car, I would tell them, oh, by the way, we'll have a little bit of volunteering work to do. Well, little did they know that they would be sorting mountains of wood type and cataloging it. So this is Joe Aliato and his now wife. Let's see, her name escapes me at the moment. Anyway, they met at Hamilton. They are now happily married, and so they were, like many poor students, had no idea that I was going to be suckering them into doing work. So those poor people. 2005, Globe Collection is donated to Hamilton. And this was a watershed moment for us because we would go behind the big red doors in the old museum and we would see these shelves and shelves of blocks that Greg Corrigan had put on a shelving there. And it was just like an archaeological dig. Every time you'd find a beautiful race car image. We started doing nice mashups and collages with different blocks from the Globe collection. We had a chance to interview Frank Zimmerman, who was the owner of Globe Printing. We met him at the Newberry Library. Paul Gale, who's on the call today, was graciously hosted us at the Newberry, where we did a nice audio recording of Frank. And this, I remember thinking the Globe collection was turning a corner for the organization, because we went from simply being a printing museum and a type museum to now American advertising art. And the blocks were in great shape. And with the vision of the Historical Society and with Richard Zoft, having a working print shop proved to be a really, really wise decision. And this role that we were filling as a working museum became increasingly important, because not only were we documenting really amazing advertising art, but we were also selling this stuff. So I introduced an online store to the museum's website, and we weren't bowled over by sales to begin with, but it really put us on a path of creating merchandise and, again, fulfilling our role as a working museum. Tracy Hahn, Paul Brown were two other people that were bringing students to Hamilton. Tracy was very mysterious. I was searching the internet around about 2005, and Tracy had posted this video of her and some students from UW-Madison doing a workshop there, and I thought, oh my God, somebody else is bringing students over. And I think that same year I met Paul Brown. Paul was bringing students, Stephanie Carpenter, of course, being one of those wonderful students. And they, with Tracy and Paul's attention and their focus on bringing students and volunteering, it really helped us start documenting the Globe collection. This was one of those absolute beautiful treasures that we uncovered for Globe, this beautiful Halloween night. And one of the things that became clear to me as we started looking at the artwork from the Globe collection is the typography was out of this world. I should say the lettering was out of this world. So the Celebrate and Halloween night and here, the letter forms that these commercial artists were doing back in the 1940s, 1950s was such a beautiful reflection of the kind of artwork that I saw in my dad's portfolio. He wisely kept his college portfolio from the Leighton School of Art, and we would go through it. I would go through it, and I was always amazed at not only was it a good printer and a good illustrator, but also a really good designer. And so seeing these lettering designs with these beautiful drop shadows and that spooky Halloween night uh, letter forms there, that really got me excited about this whole notion of documenting letter forms and trying to document the collection. So we had a couple of false starts in 2006 where we started photographing it. We started putting numbers on the backs of the blocks. And it was, when I think about what Paul Pagnato is doing now and Jen Ann and other volunteers who are working on the collection, it's so amazing to me that we have really grown up as an organization and are doing a really, I will say, world-class job of curating what's here, describing what's here, and sharing what's here. So that was something that really began in earnest in 2006. 2007, I was working with a sign maker in St. Paul, a guy named Denver Hull. And Denver was using this crazy technology called CNC routing, computer numerically controlled routing. And he would bring in these samples of these signs that he was making with this CNC router, and the light bulb went off, and I thought we could make wood type templates. And what inspired this project was Matthew Carter's Van Lanen font. I think at the time it was called Carter Latin. And what we were seeing with the experimentation that Richard Zoft was doing, and I think Nick Sherman may have had a hand in it too, they were trying to cut the templates in the museum and then print it. And this was really tight registration. So I thought, let's try doing CNC patterns and then cutting it using the pantograph, because for me, that meant letting the original technology and the superpower that the museum has with the pantographs and the wisdom and the wood alongside digital technology, and making those things weave in a way that was really important, that let us showcase what we did best. As you see here, we're actually cutting wood type with the CNC router, but this was never my vision in terms of, yes, we could certainly use contemporary technology to cut wood type, but for me, it was always about, by using really good, really precise CNC cut templates, we could then go back and explore and get better at using the pantograph in a way that where we were starting off with really good source material. It was a very strange thing to call up Matthew Carter on the phone. He and I had never met, and Mr. Carter, can we rename your font? And I said, we want to name it after one of the museum volunteers, the founder of the museum, Jim Van Lanen. We'd like to call it Van Lanen. And I was very inspired by Zuzana Lichko's Mrs. Eve's font, right? What a great story about an unsung heroine of typography. And so I got very inspired by Zuzana's idea, and we started naming these fonts after Hamilton retirees, museum volunteers, et cetera. And so that was a really important moment for us in terms of trying to get better at being type cutting and making sure we acknowledge the people who had helped make it possible. 2008, this woman, Justine Nagan, calls up on the phone and says, Bill, I hear you've been doing a lot of work at the museum. Would you like to be interviewed as part of this film that we're making? And I thought that would be a really exciting opportunity. Here we see a group of Paul Brown students from Indiana, and a very, were you in grad school at this point, Stephanie? I can't use my cursor right now. Actually, sure I can.
I was in grad school.
Here she is right here inspecting Norb's work. I love that. So we've got a bunch of IU students, Tom Walker over there on the left, and a number of others who are watching the magic unfold. And so Norb sort of overnight with this film kind of becomes a movie star, and he gets invited, and Jim Van Lanen got invited to give a talk at TypeCon. That was back in 2003. I'm getting my stories out of order a little bit here, but the film really cemented the museum's reputation and Hamilton Retirees' reputation as having a body of knowledge that was really important for American typography and graphic design. Let's see what else to say. Anything about this one? No, we'll keep going. So 2009, this is our first Ways Goose. And my friend JP Porter, who I had worked on a number of events with in the Twin Cities, graciously agreed to volunteer for the event. And she helped us gimp along, and we used really crappy projectors. And she was always saying, no, Bill, you need a better microphone. Nobody's going to be able to see this projector. Get a better projector, et cetera, et cetera. So it was, she dragged us kicking and screaming into the audio-visual 20th century. We got Nick Sherman there in the foreground. We've got Eva de la Rocha from Madrid. Of course, the venerable Dave Pete in the front row there, along with Greg Walters, Mark Simonson off on the left side there, Juliet Shen. And the cast of characters goes, oh, there's Jim Grieshaber. And so all of these people, complete thorough type nerds, start showing up and just totally throwing their energy and their passion into the organization. And it just really picked up steam. And so that was exciting. It was a really exciting time. Jim got hired April 15th of 2009. I got hired on a part-time basis September 1st of 2009. And the Typeface film gets released. And of course, National Public Television picks it up and it gets broadcast across the country. Jim's getting a ton of inquiries about the museum and can you come and talk about it? We gave a talk at the Walker Art Center that fall. If I'm not mistaken, it was Greg and Jim and I and Justine, I think, as a panel discussion where they showed the film at the Walker Art Center. And again, the momentum really starts to build with the museum. It's getting more and more attention, and things just started happening. Our friends at Columbia College invited us to come and give a workshop there. You may be able to tell that is none other than Selene Aubrey behind that World of Pleasure shows. The dead giveaway is the bib overalls. I don't know if you know that about Selene, but she wears bib overalls sometimes. One of the things that was really fun to see was that people started experimenting with what parts of the blocks got inked. And so we were at Columbia and working with April Sheridan and the rest of the team there. It was a tremendous turnout for the workshop. I think we gave a talk at Columbia as well, but increasingly we saw people doing really creative inking techniques with the blocks themselves. And so you'd watch people experiment with these things and you go, oh, that's a really good idea. I'm going to try that when I'm at the museum next, or I'm going to take these blocks back to St. Paul and start doing more and more collage work. And so the collage work and the prints that Jim and volunteers were doing, they were getting more and more beautiful. And I reached out to my friend Maureen McGuire, who was at the time head of trends and forecasting at Target Corporation. And I put all the posters out on my dining room table and I invited her over. And I said, Maureen, I think Target should do a line of paper goods. We could do some really beautiful stuff with you. And she took one look at it and she said, oh no, clothing. So I said, okay. And we went through a series of negotiations. It was really unbelievably good timing. And we got advice from a very, very well-respected attorney who said, whatever you do, make sure you only give them 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper with a big copyright symbol in the lower left-hand corner describing the intellectual property and really being careful about it. Well, I ignored that lawyer's advice. I, of course, gave them the best posters we had, big posters. And what did Maureen do but made sure they sat out on a tabletop at the design headquarters at Target, and people would walk past and go, oh, what's this? And what's this? And the storytelling that Maureen did within the corporation and the momentum that she built behind it was nothing short of amazing. So here you see the Target design team in 2011 proofing blocks from the Globe collection They boiled those 200 images down and ended up making, I believe it was 83 SKUs of clothing, everything from pajamas to shoulder bags to baseball caps. But the best part of it all was that there was a Hamilton hang tag on every single article of clothing. And so that was really an amazing source of exposure for us. I think that was part of what attracted the folks at Field Notes to us, but now suddenly Hamilton was being looked to as an American design resource. And that was something that really made the Two Rivers Historical Society crop up their attention. I believe that was the year that Stephanie got hired, 2011. And suddenly the staff of the three of us the phone was ringing, and there was a lot of requests to give talks, and people were coming in and documenting the collection. Student groups were coming. The other thing that happened in 2011 was our dear friend Ferko Goldinger, who was working at Appleton Coated Paper at the time. He invited Jim and I to not only give a talk at the How Design Conference, but also to make banners for their trade show booth. And so here we are in Boston in 2011 doing this beautiful under pressure wood type banner. So we pre-printed these with black ink, just the outlines. We did this in the museum, and then we went in and did embellishments to the type on site during the conference. And so under pressure and overboard were the two taglines that we came up with as kind of funny little nods to wood type printing. And that was a level of exposure to the graphic design community. And so these two photographs really represent kind of an opening up of the museum's collection and its efforts to a much wider design audience. I think Steve Heller also wrote his first article about the museum at around that time. And what's a good PR opportunity without an emergency? And so in 2012, we had a crazy dumping of rain in the old building. And there's Dan Elliott with a wet vac mopping up the floor. You can see a puddle on the floor there. And Darlene Julesdorf, dutifully wiping down type. You can see some type buckling there in the lower right-hand corner. And not only were we able to raise $25,000 in fundraising for repairs and those kinds of things, but Nina Paper also established the Beauty of Letterpress program. And so that was a really cool website that gave a ton of exposure to various graphic designers and letterpress printers who were doing beautiful work with that. I approached Nick Sherman and invited him to do a typeface called Brilski, named for Norb Brilski, of course. And we unveiled that at the 2012 Ways Goose. So that was exciting. And that was really when the Wood Type Legacy Project, which is what we called this endeavor, that was when it really took off. And the idea that we would do one new typeface a year. At around the same time, Rich Kegler is working with us to digitize the collection, and he starts working with us to release digital fonts from the collection. And the big thing for us was, it's not enough for you to just come to Two Rivers, but how do we share the collection with a wider audience? How do we put the computer, or I should say, how do we put wood type on your desktop? And that has been one of the best decisions I've ever made, was reaching out to Rich, because Rich, your historical chops, your talent as a designer and a printer, it's just been breathtaking to watch the trajectory of how Hamilton and P22 have partnered together. Nick, I thought I saw you log on to the call. This font, the Brilski font, was absolutely stunning. It was a demanding font, but it was such a beautiful release. And I'm so proud to say that it's been a really successful partnership by asking people to donate their time, their skills as type designers to help support the museum. 2013, we get the word that we have to move. This was an extremely emotional decision and difficult decision for me, because I had been leading study abroad trips to with U of M students to Tipoteca Italiana, to the Gutenberg Museum, and Imprenta Municipal in Madrid. And I started to see what printing museums meant to the design and art communities throughout Europe, and particularly at the Gutenberg Museum. Here you have a museum in the founding, in the home city of printing's, European printing's birthplace. So while you walk around the city of Mainz, you see all of these historical signs about this was Johann Gensfleisch's birth house. This was the house he put up for collateral for his printing process. And I thought long and hard about the fact that the museum was still in the original Hamilton manufacturing space. And that was really something that made it quite magical. Unfortunately, there was another 1.2 million square feet of problematic real estate, leaky roofs, bad wiring, you name it, that it was just not practical to stay there. So the Two Rivers Historical Society found the building that we're currently in, the Formright building, and then literally an army of volunteers came and helped us pack this place up. That's Jane Bax there, packing things into boxes. I'm not sure who's unpacking typecases. Jim became a very good at least a better forklift driver at that point. And but the outpouring of support, both from a human volunteering standpoint and the $250,000 we raised to acquire the building was just phenomenal. And the request for us to do talks kept coming in. We established a sister printing relationship with Tipoteca Italiana. We invited Sandro Berra to come and speak at Ways Goose. That was really an important moment for us in terms of having a working exchange with these different printing museums from around the world. So really thinking of ourselves in a peer group and talking to our peers. We became a member of the Association of European Printing Museums. Somehow they let us into that gig. I don't know, they were just probably looking for members, but it was really great to be embraced by that community and see the different collaborations that came as a result of that. Let's see, onward to 2014. If you've ever cut type for Eric Spiekerman, you know that it can be a demanding experience. Let's just say that. I called 2014 the year of living dangerously because Eric kicked our ass, but in the best way possible. And who was the heroine of this? George Brilski, because she was the one who had to cut this damn thing with all the side bearings, top, bottom, left, and right to Herr Eric Spiekerman's specifications. But as a result, we became such a better museum just in terms of the quality type that George was cutting for us. On the left there, you see 7-inch tall wood type with long grain maple because we had to glue up long grain in order to make the type this big. We did it in 3 sizes, 16 Cicero, 70 Cicero, I don't know, 2 inches, 6 inches, and 12 inches tall. And each method used a different type cutting technology. The 2-inch tall was cut with a pantograph. The 6-inch tall, which you see on the left, was cut entirely with CNC routing. And then the 12-inch tall type we did with veneer type, which was laser cut. And in every instance, every different size of type employed a different manufacturing process. And that really taught us a tremendous amount about what was easy and what was hard. So, and then in the lower right-hand corner, you of course have Sandro Berra, Silvio Antiga, and then Paul Gale hosting us at the Newberry Library in 2014. We were graciously, we were so grateful to have the folks from Tipoteca come and speak at Ways Goose that year. We also began something called the Charter Membership Program, which raised $24,000 in about a 6-month period. And I was kind of inspired by the Packers stock certificate idea that you could, yes, you're a member, you're a charter member. And No, you don't actually own a part of the museum, but you get this cool little plaque, and you get as Kathy O'Connell said, you get a star after your name as being somebody who invested in the museum at a really important time for us. Well, we get a phone call in February, March of 2015 from the folks at Inquirer Printing in Cincinnati, Ohio. And we had heard from them that somebody from University of Texas, Austin was coming to look at this collection, and that if Hamilton was interested in this, we may want to come down and look at it. Well, I jumped on a plane 2 days, 3 days later. I actually walked on the plane. I didn't jump on the plane, but got on the plane a couple days later, and this photograph on the left is what I encountered. And it was breathtaking. Breathtaking in that it was dusty and I coughed a lot, but also the blocks were stacked, as you see, flat on top of each other, which makes inspecting all of them extremely difficult. So went down and looked at the collection. I called Jim, I called our friend John Horn, I called Paul Gale, and we were trying to kind of wrap our heads around how important this collection was. Jim Sheridan was, of course, instrumental in helping us appraise this. And on the right there, you see that beautiful 3-color chimpanzee poster. So lots of negotiating, lots of arguments with the broker who was working with them. But then getting to know the Anderson family, Mike and John and Steve Anderson, and befriending them and assuring them that the Inquirer collection was going to have an important place in our museum, I was able to raise the funds to help do this. And the people out there on the call who helped with this acquisition know who they are. That was nothing short of phenomenal. And it's the really amazing thing is that we bought it in many ways sight unseen. We only had it, the scratching the surface of this collection. You couldn't really see what all was there, but when you started looking at the 110 pallets of stuff, and simply by unpacking one pallet and finding stuff like this, and then seeing prints from the collection, that was helped push us over the edge. This deal got sweeter when they offered us a poster archive of about 520 prints from their archive. Jim Sheridan wisely said, be sure and get 2 of everything, because you're going to want one for your permanent collection and one to exhibit someday. And so that was a really great piece of advice. And then we also got something like 750 letters of correspondence from the collection. So it wasn't just letters that Inquirer was sending out to their clients, but also the requests that were coming to Inquirer Printing for, hey, we need 6 Al Kelly posters. We need 25 of these Leaping Tiger posters. And when the correspondence came in, we took one look at the boxes and boxes of these catalogs, and we thought, let's make sure that this is treated safely. And so we donated it to the Newberry Library, where we knew Paul Gale and his team would take really good care of it and also document it. And so all of that correspondence is available online for research purposes. And now suddenly a collection like Inquirer gets you thinking about a printing collection and American advertising art from a 360-degree view. You can see what it costs to make the posters. You can see what the posters look like, and you have the blocks. So that was a really important moment for us. And it also forced us as a museum to think, well, does this change our mission? Are we now something more than a type museum? Are we more than simply a printing museum? We are also an archive of advertising art. And it allowed us to start thinking about the collection much more broadly in terms of research and sharing and protection. And with a 4-person staff trying to do all that stuff, partly with volunteers, partly with paid subcontractors, but When the collection came in, the space it took up in that back storage room, those of you who have been in that back storage room, you would think, well, it's the size of a football field. We're not going to fill this up. Yeah, we totally filled that up. And then we had to rearrange, move things around so that we could get that stuff in the door. 26 semi-trailers of stuff. No, that was the move. 7 semi-trailers, 5 semi-trailers worth of stuff that that came from Cincinnati. And it was it was encouraging to know that an archive and a collection of printing history was kept intact. And the fact that it was packed up by the Anderson family and by printers meant that they packed things together. The documentation was good. Of course, it was full of coal dust because it sat alongside the coal burning furnace in the Enquirer printing plant. So those of you who have cleaned this stuff know just how awesome coal dust is, and that it gets into nooks and crannies everywhere. But this was really an amazing turning point for us as a museum. That same chimpanzee print you see here on the right yielded this little gem of, yeah. So you start appreciating the kind of color separation skills that were involved. You see freaks and oddities, believe it or not. Some days I feel like that describes the museum staff, because we are kind of freaks and oddities as our volunteers. We started embarking on the path towards an independent 501c3. Our favorite forklift retired, and let's see, Jim may be able to supplement this story, but I think it was a press release went out saying we were trying to raise funds. I think it was a Green Bay television station called up and said, well, what are you going to raise the funds for? And we said, well, we need a new forklift. That was it. Betty the forklift had given up the ghost, and we needed to replace it. So a television station calls about this fundraising effort and says to Jim, well, how did you come up with the name Betty for that? And Jim said, when you drive it down the aisle, it goes Betty, 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 which is pretty good and very typical of the kind of quick responses that Jim is able to give without much warning. So
Yeah.
the next day, we get a phone call from who was the local company, Jim?
It was like Howard's Machinery, Big H.
Nice. So they called and said, well, we'll give you one. So all of a sudden, overnight, we had a forklift, and that was the kind of response that that we were lucky enough to be experiencing in terms of volunteering. We also asked the Anderson brothers and their lovely wives to come and speak at our Ways Goose that year. That was an amazing exhibition of vintage Enquirer posters. Just that backdrop behind Mike and John and their wives kind of shows you this nice array of things. And when I say in-depth exploration of Enquirer starts to show us beautiful things, the in-depth exploration involved printing it, and that was really important, that we started not just the curation process of discovering, photographing, and documenting, but also printing with it again. And so the whole concept of being a working museum becomes more and more true as the days go by. Our good friend Paul Pegnato approaches us at Ways Goose and says, hey, I have some cataloging expertise. Would you like some help? And we said, yes, in fact, we would. And we were able to enlist his help. For me, having walked through the big red doors in the old museum space and looking at the Globe collection, kind of in a shambles, kind of not well taken care of, and seeing the damage, some of the damage that happened because of how long it sat on that semi-trailer truck in suburban Chicago, having these blocks be cataloged, grouped, photographed, sized, labeled, entered into a database. This was just like, oh, I would walk through the back storage area, see what Jim and Stephanie, the volunteers, had achieved with Paul's help. And it was just magical, absolutely magical. And it was just like pulling on your big boy and girl museum pants, right? It's like, oh my God, this is just so wonderful. Our good friend Jonathan Heffler, who had been a huge fan of the museum for a long time, spoke at Ways Goose that year, and he did these really beautiful catchwords for the museum that we sold in our store. There wasn't an entirely positive response on behalf of some people. So we had to be mindful of what kind of language we wanted to use on our merchandise. So there were some good discussions around these catchwords, and they sold great, but we had to be thoughtful about what kind of language we use. So that was fun. In 2018, the museum gets tapped to work with Fred Smyers who's a really brilliant type designer. I want to say Fred is he Dutch? Yeah, I think he's Dutch. So Fred had been doing documentation at the Plantin Mouritius Museum. And if you don't know about the Plantin Mouritius Museum, you absolutely should know about it. It's a 200-year-old printing museum based on a 480-year-old printing company. And they have a world-class collection of matrices, type specimens, books, etc. And they had always been sort of a mecca for me. I always wanted to go there and check it out. And I would be consumed with extreme jealousy when people would tell me they had been to Plantin Mouritius, and it's like, one of these days. And sure enough, we get invited by Fred Smyers to work with what is believed to be one of the oldest known posters to exist. That means on the right there, good Leuven's beer, or good beer from Louvain. Anyway, Fred had made this digital font based on this typeface. And then, of course, doesn't George Brilski come to our aid and cut this type on the pantograph? So the black letter type that you see up on the top image there is a testament to her skill, but what really sings are those beautiful red initial capitals. And she just made us look so good, and the type turned out beautifully. The posters turned out great. Jim gave a talk at A-Type I that year. We led workshops with Patrick Gussens at his shop. That was really great fun. And then another really wonderful international collaboration was a group of initial capitals that were donated by Klaus Maywald. Klaus was the head librarian at the Gutenberg Museum, and he really opened the doors of the Gutenberg Museum to me and my students back in 2009. And so we started collaborating. He donated 6,000 of these beautiful printed initial capitals to the University of Minnesota so that I could teach using them. They were from his personal collection. And I said to him, Klaus, why don't you just donate these beautiful capitals to the Gutenberg Museum? He said, we have all the books that they appear in, and somebody cut these out of books back around 1850, 1860, and I want you to have them. So from there, we started documenting them. My dear friend, Marcia Missick, who's on the call today, painstakingly scanned all 6,000 of these initials. We got them documented. We have them cataloged at the University of Minnesota under the Maywald collection. And in 2018, we displayed some of the most beautiful wood type that the Renaissance produced. Paul Gale, again, wrote a beautiful introduction for the collection. He helped us find books that these initials appeared in. And this was a really important point for us, where Hamilton starts looking back at pre-industrial revolution wood type. And so that was an important opportunity for us to acknowledge that wood type is a lot older. The skill that these people had who cut this type going back to the 1480s, 1490s is nothing short of magnificent. We have so much to learn from them. So that was 2018 was a big year, and it was just really fun to embark on these research projects, collaborating with really smart, talented people. 2019, we secured this Campbell Country Press from Howard Ironworks in, is he in not Montreal? He's near
Oakville, Ontario, west of Toronto.
Right. Really beautiful press from 1906. Amelia Fontenelle was instrumental in helping us research and finding documentation about this press. We went up there and Nick, this is Nick featured in the photograph here. He pulls this out of a storage container, and we were lucky enough to be able to have him restore it for us. It's on the museum floor today. It works like a charm. And on the right, Jim Sheridan locks himself out of, no, he didn't lock himself out of the bungalow, but there he is smoking in the backyard. And I just wanted to include an embarrassing photo of Jim, which isn't that hard, it turns out. We had our most profitable Ways Goose ever in 2019. Corporate sponsors, Mark Simonson, Adobe, Field Notes, Heffler Type Foundry, Neenah Paper, Mohawk Paper, French Paper, the list goes on. And so being able to work with corporate sponsors of this caliber was just made so much of this possible. So 2019 was a magnificent year. Again, I have to give a shout out to JP Porter for Ways Goose. She really helped us in terms of making the 2020 Ways Goose an incredibly fun and exciting event. And she, as much as anyone, volunteered at an extremely high level, has always given us the best advice. She has kicked our asses and told us to make sure that we use the best technology. In JP's words, if these people go to all the trouble to prepare these beautiful slideshows, and these people get on an airplane to come to your museum to see those beautiful slideshows and pay you for the pleasure of looking at these slideshows, the color damn well better be right. And that was enough for the museum staff and I to realize that we had better do what JP says. And it turned out to be good advice. So a Ways Goose turned out amazingly well. Talk about fantastic volunteers. Tom Walker's wonderful visual identity just absolutely made the event sing. Stephanie's work in terms of shepherding the event was just so much fun to watch her tear her hair out and stomp her feet and make sure that we were all trying to get the damn job done. And the other great thing that happened that year was this beautiful restrike exhibit that was a culmination of Jim Moran's work with the help of a lot of talented printers. For us, the Restrike exhibit was again a chance to really showcase what our skills were as a working museum, and I can't stress that phrase enough. We are a working museum. And this collection of posters, selected really carefully by museum staff and documented thoughtfully, colors chosen and tweaked and updated for the 21st century. It really was a proud moment for us and such a great showcase of the kinds of things that Jim and Stephanie do day in and day out in terms of documenting that collection. It's important to talk about the West Foundation, the Logan Foundation, and the Wingate Foundation in terms of their support of the event. The Kohler Foundation supported us. It was 2020 was just so spectacular in terms of a lot of really great projects coming to fruition, seeing the presses used, seeing the blocks documented, taken care of, oiled, dusted, cleaned, printed again. and a whole new body of work coming out of this place with the help of fantastic volunteers, which brings us to 2021. We filed for incorporation in 2021 as our own 501c3. This is a magnificent reflection of the work that the new Hamilton board has done. We've got an incredible crew on the Hamilton board who has helped bringing us into the next year. And it's, again, it's the Two Rivers Historical Society understanding and encouraging and helping nurture, move this place forward. The vision they had to create a printing museum in this city, and then trusting that the new board would carry this organization forward. Wow, just wow. I think it's something that maybe is invisible to the general population. You don't notice that anything's different here necessarily between 2014 and 2021. We're still doing a lot of the same stuff we've been doing all along, but from an infrastructure standpoint, we get the most amazing executive administrative director, Peter Crabb, in 2020, who helps really put an incredible framework in place. I can't say enough great. But the real champion, the real amazing person who makes it all work is Smyers. She, as much and more than anyone, makes this place go round. The jobs that nobody else wants to do, the jobs that she takes on and does with so much grace and skill and knowledge and planning. We are so blessed to have her here, of course. So thank you, Tootsie. Thank you, Peter, for being so supportive of the magic for the last, well, Peter for a year and a half. Tootsie, 2014, is that the year that you came on board?
She had some technical difficulty. She might have snuck out.
No worries. Jim says yes, 2014. She also was an employee at Thermo Fisher Scientific, and she worked behind the scenes to help secure records from the Hamilton Manufacturing Company and et cetera. So those nice so I have to talk about getting the online gallery up with the help of Paul Pagnato and Christopher Sly and Ben Jordan and a host of other volunteers documenting the collection. This has been a really wonderful project to launch. If you haven't seen the online gallery, Stephanie, if you don't mind, go ahead and if you haven't already, throw the URL, thank you, into the chat section. That is something I'm extremely proud of. And it's such a great way to showcase layers of letterpress printing on such a beautiful collection. And then our good friends at Tipoteca invited me to do their 2021 calendar. And you can, of course, get that in our online store. That was a really fun and wonderful project to do. So 2021 is heading in a really good direction for so many reasons. That's my Hamilton battery on the left there. It's only one. It's a D cell. There's a little hatch right back here, and I'm going to go and recharge it. I worked it over pretty good. Yeah, and I'm going to recharge it by printing, and I'm going to recharge it by hanging out with this woman, my amazing wife, Carol. Here we are making perfectly normal faces, or at least it seems so at the time. We both had less gray hair than we do now, but I really like this photo of the two of us. She has been my inspiration. She's been incredibly patient and encouraging of what this place could become. And she didn't tell me to shut up too often when I wouldn't stop talking about it. So I'm grateful that she's there and going to enjoy some non-Hamilton time with me in 2021. So God bless her. And that's all I got.
Thank you, Bill.
Sure.
So great, Bill. Thanks.
Glad you enjoyed it. It was great fun. I have not been watching the chat section, but if there's questions, I'm happy to field them. I know it's 1:02 and Stephanie is our clock keeper. So Stephanie, do we have a few more minutes or are we going to wrap it up?
No, we have a few more minutes, Bill. This is a great time for people to chat. There's been so many good memories. I'll make sure you see the chat when we're done.
Cool. Any
I have
questions?
to say, I'm super impressed that you could rip through your entire time at Hamilton in an hour. Like, right on, Bill.
Well, it kind of went by in an hour. 20 years goes by very, 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 very fast. So, yeah. Sorry, Don, unmute yourself. Hey, Don, can you unmute yourself?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
You can, huh? But I want to thank you, Bill, for all that you've done. And I think it was one of the biggest decisions we made and the best decisions we made when we hired you, Jim, and Stephanie, because I think we had a really great nucleus of what we wanted to have done. And I'll tell you, we put a lot of pressure on you, Bill. When we needed the money, money, right? And you
That
came
seems to
through
be your
for us.
recurring theme.
But you and Jim, you had some good connections, and we still have those connections today. And I think I just want to thank you and best of luck to you.
Thank you, Don. It was a group effort. It was really a group effort. The working styles that Jim, Stephanie, and Tootsie and I have are different, let's say. And what we really, really enjoyed doing was collaborating and figuring out, all right, let's get this done. And then to have somebody of Peter's skill set come along and help put an even more solid framework in place. It's just been really magnificent. I got to give a shout out to Martine Stika, who's on the call. She was one of those crazy, stupid employees, crazy, wonderful employees. That
Best days ever.
we would have road trips over here, she and Rory Sparks and Blink employees, and we would document and we would print. And it was the same thing with JP on these road trips back and forth. It was always, you know what we could do? And you know what else we could do? You know, we should do this. And it was just a lot of that stuff came true through the vivid imaginations and a lot of really good visualizing with it. I'm also seeing our friend Erin Thacker on the call. She and her team at Chronicle. Oh my God, I forgot to mention that incredible postcard box set. If you haven't seen it, it's for sale by Chronicle, and gotta say thanks to them. I also see Gail Fox there and Jerome in the background. You want to talk about people who could give good pep talks? Those two, Gail and Jerome, from day one would walk in and ask questions and think out loud and serve as such amazing role models for us in terms of historians. Just talking with Gail about her architectural history and all that she's done for Frank Lloyd Wright buildings around the state of Wisconsin. Wow, just phenomenal. And I'm going to keep going through the screen here to see who else is there. All kinds of good friends. Oh, my cousin, Mike Moran. Hello, Mike. How are you? Good to see you. Tracy's there, of course. A couple of my students. Wow, wow, wow. Well, Rick, what's for lunch?
It's salmon bento box and homemade kombucha.
Okay. Oh, bring it over.
Yeah, I've got you down for a kombucha subscription if you need it every 2 weeks, just to keep you regular.
It seems to be working even without kombucha, so that's cool. Nice to see Nick Sherman on the call. How's everything in Amsterdam, Nick?
Hello. It's pretty good here. It's raining a lot because it's wintertime, but could be worse. I have a nice office to work in. I don't have to struggled to make ends meet. So I'm knocking on wood.
Good. We miss you here in the States, but we're also kind of jealous. So nice to see Patrick Goossens on the call. Hello, Patrick.
Hello, how are you?
Good, good. Nice to hear your voice.
Yeah, I certainly hope you come back to Antwerp one day.
Yeah, actually, I'm coming tomorrow. I hope that's okay. Can you
Yes,
have some of that
absolutely.
amazing bakery ready for me?
Yeah, it's still open and running in spite of everything.
Wonderful. Well, I'm being cognizant of the clock, so any other questions? Oh, Mary, hooray.
I'm sorry I joined late, Bill. I lost track of time.
Oh my gosh, Paul, that's quite okay. You look wonderful as always. Thank you for the beautiful book you sent.
I'm glad it finally got to you.
Yeah, the mail sometimes moves at a slow pace around
Well,
here.
no, I was trying to send it to you in Minneapolis and I asked you for an address. You never responded. So that's why I sent it to the museum.
Completely unprecedented. I always respond.
Well, maybe the email got frozen between Minneapolis and New York.
Yeah, could be. I'm also seeing Ellen Blisky on the call. Thanks for joining, Ellen. Sid Ulrich, good to see you, my friend. That girl's a troublemaker
Uh-oh.
in the best way possible. And well, Jeff Wallvogel, of course.
We still get paper from Jeff.
Oh yeah, good point. And
I thought you only hung out with troublemakers, Bill.
He's a super spreader, Stephanie.
And so
We'll make sure to reprimand him later.
So Bill, I do have to add that in the year and a half that I have known you, my hair is actually a little bit even whiter than when I started here. I'm not quite sure why,
I wouldn't have thought that was possible.
But it's been great. I couldn't have asked for a more welcoming. I couldn't have asked for a more welcoming colleague. Everybody needs to know how wonderful and gracious you are, and you make work fun. And I'm going to miss writing with you. We've done a lot of writing together, and what are the people that Imagineers? We've done a lot of Imagineering together. To use a nice term.
Have a vivid imagination. I want to give props to Marcia Missick on the call. She has been such a dear friend over the years and did an amazing job with the Myvald collection. That exhibition, both here at Hamilton and at the U of M, was made possible by her. Paul Brown, of course, we've already said mostly nice things about, I think. And yeah, look at the rest of you. Gosh. Of course, Mark Simonson. Howdy, Mark.
Hey, how you doing? I
Great.
really enjoyed the kind of overview of the last 20 years. It was a lot of fun to see it all in one place.
Yeah,
I must say, like, seeing it all presented kind of in a row like that, I haven't really seen it all put together like that, and it really kind of blows my mind how much different things have happened at the museum since I've known you guys.
It's been like the nicest roller coaster ride I have ever been on, right? Skateboard ride, yeah, the nicest skateboard ride I've been on in a long time. There's scar tissue for sure, but what is it? They all want. Never mind, I won't quote that. No, really, really happy with just collaborating with all these people. I have to give a shout out to Enrique Nardi, one of the most fabulous photographers who's helped us out. Oh, look at that. You are so kind. Look at your
I borrowed the bee from Fred Smyers poster. Just a little, just while you were presenting, but amazing, and so much passion on the story you shared with all of us, and it's really inspiring. So thank you for all of that.
Thanks. We still have a lot of work to do. We are not finished yet. Once
Indeed.
those batteries are recharged, I'm going to be darkening their doorstep again for whatever they'll let me do. Printing, I hope. I want to get back to printing. So Excited to see what's next. Yes.
Mm.
I should probably also thank my brother. He's been a dear friend. We finish each other's sentences and not always in a good way. We often don't finish them correctly. We just put up with the fact that the other finishes each other's sentences.
Who puts the swear word at the end?
Depends on the day.
Yeah.
I do Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. He does Tuesday, Thursday, Saturdays. And then on Sundays, we try not to swear. Actually, on Sundays, we try not to talk about work. That often doesn't happen. All right. Well, unless anybody else has any other observations, we're going to let you all get back to your lunchtime fun. I'm starving.
What time do you clock out, and can you do any work until then?
Oh, if you only knew how true that was, Tom.
I vote vacuuming.
I've got a nice list, Tom.
I'll get right.
Tom, didn't you clean up all those little pieces of plastic from your workshop?
I did, but I'm talking about coal dust in the collection.
Everywhere.
On that note, we're gonna have a lunch from Kurtz's brought into the museum, and then we're back to it. Thank you, Bill. Like Nick said, seeing it all laid out was really amazing. We've done so much, and there's so much to do. Thank you for everything you've done.
Well done.
Thanks for all the support from all of you. Much appreciated.
And thank you to all of you. Yep, I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for spending it with us. We really appreciate it. I hope you have a good day. Have a good Friday.